Hi, and welcome to Module 3, Part 2. We're still talking about social and emotional development this week. So our module objectives are to provide participants with information on child development in the areas of social and emotional development, including building a sense of self, relationships with adults and peers, emotional competence, pro-social behavior development, and working with challenging behaviors. Again, as a reminder, social and emotional development are often talked about as one thing. However, they are actually two separate things. And here are the definitions. I'll have you pause the video and read them over again. Just make sure you are clear on your understanding of what social development is and what emotional development is. So, some major developments in emotional development from birth to 3 that are achieved are the building, ultimately, of a sense of security and trust, coming to understand emotions, labeling or naming feelings, emotional regulation starts, and awareness of the wider world, and this development of an aesthetic sense. So that's really just being able to notice beauty in the world. And again, these are things that will develop given the right time and experience and positive experiences. And one way to help these major developmental tasks occur is attachment. So attachment is an emotional bond between an infant or toddler and a primary caregiver. This strong bond is vital for children's normal development of behavior and social development. Attachment is something that is meant to last for a long period of time. It's what promotes that security and trust and social competency and self-confidence. It is completely relationship-based. It is completely connected to healthy social and emotional health and well-being. It's also connected to healthy brain development, and it's really important to note that infants and toddlers can actually form secure attachments with more than one figure without disrupting the bond between other attachment figures. The way that you do this is by being sensitive and prompt. So this is responding to a child when they cry, or responding to them when they're hungry, or responding to them when they need you, and being prompt about it and being developmentally appropriate about it. So one thing that you should note about attachment is that it can be affected by constantly changing caregivers. And this really can impact that feelings of security and trust. So sometimes it's a struggle for us in the early childhood field because we have such a revolving door when it comes to staff. So if you don't have a staff member that you can really build that strong attachment with, or that caregiver, that can impact attachment, which then in turn impacts social and emotional development. So this idea of emotional regulation, this actually begins to develop in infancy. However, it is a bumpy path. You're still going to have issues. But really what you're looking at when we're talking about emotional regulation is that we're looking at a child's ability to wait patiently, not act impulsively, and manage strong emotions. So this is kind of the path to regulating when you think in terms of like temper tantrums and how children get to a point where they stop having them, and it's through learning these skills. But it's really important to note your role in this, because when we're talking about emotional regulation development, we're not talking about controlling emotions, but really developing an understanding of how to manage them appropriately. So emotions and feelings are totally natural. We all have them. We would never tell a child that they can't be sad or angry or happy or afraid or shy. Really what we're trying to do is teach them to express them appropriately. So caregivers can model this for young children by expressing various emotions and providing words that label feelings. It also develops through attachment. When children have their needs met, they'll develop ways to self-soothe. We know that there's varying levels of attachment that we're not going to go into just because of time constraints, but children who have insecure, or avoidance attachments have increased difficulty in learning to self-regulate. And we also have to keep in mind this idea of temperament, because children with a more intense temperament also are going to have a harder time with emotional regulation. In preschool, we're really looking at these 3 aspects that are listed on the slide. We're looking at the development of emotional competence, stress, coping, and resiliency, and the development of a conscience. So researchers now believe that preschoolers' positive and negative emotions serve important functions for motivating every aspect of their development and learning. That should come as no surprise to you. We've been talking about how social and emotional development is really your goal as an early childhood educator, is just helping children learn these skills and develop these skills. So, the development of emotional competence. We know that preschoolers are able to show more complex facial expressions, gestures, words, and symbols. They can also identify others' emotions and considers others' perspective. They can start to describe and label feelings, and they can express anger and distress in more appropriate ways as long as they're given the right time and space. I think time and space are key words as we work through our work to work on this, because it's not something that we should expect young children to know how to do right off the bat. But why is this emotional competence and emotional development important in preschool? We know that these abilities build a foundation for later school success. So children who cannot manage or regulate negative emotions or have a hard time being empathetic are less likely to do well in school and are generally less well adjusted. We have to keep in mind temperament and cultural context because they can influence our feelings and how our feelings are expressed. However, research does show that your family is your biggest influence when it comes to emotional development. So, warm parents who work on understanding and helping children deal with emotions have a more emotionally competent children. Parents who are harsh and rejecting, have frequent conflict or angry adult outbursts, are essentially undermining their child's development in this area because they're modeling how to handle that in a poor way. A child's relationship with their teacher also is going to affect emotional competence. It goes back to that idea of attachment. So the development of conscious in preschool starts to happen. So this is a crucial time for children to develop qualities such as consideration for others, a conscious, and a sense of what is right and wrong. Preschool children can refrain from doing something wrong even if they know that no one is watching. Some ways that this can be promoted is through relationships with peers. So when you have positive relationships with peers, you're more aware of others' feelings, and in turn, you're going to be more concerned about them. Children who don't develop these skills are more likely to have behavior problems and to be less helpful to other children. Again, parent temperaments are going to be influential in whether this develops or not. The third aspect of preschool emotional development that we should talk about is stress, coping, and resiliency. So stress for everybody arises when we feel a situation is more than we are able to manage. And we usually respond physically, so our bodies or our behaviors are our feelings. It's really important to highlight that not all stress for young children is harmful, but stressful situations can be negated by having supportive adult relationships. And we also know that you can't completely avoid stress, and there's just some stress in early childhood that is very real, like divorce, hospitalization, going to a new school. Others may be due to difficulty of separating the pretend from the real, so that's like there's monsters under my bed. However, children going through stress actually does help them develop self-regulation and coping skills, but they need that support from a supportive adult. Young children who become overwhelmed by extreme stress actually will face long-term developmental difficulties. It impacts the brain. So this idea of resiliency is interesting. It's this idea that you have the ability to bounce back. However, it goes back to that adult support being key. So we know that there are children who experience the same amount of stress, but some of those children seem to bounce back, and meaning that they develop well despite encountering high levels of stress, while others don't. Research is showing us that not only that adult support is key, but that temperament and other inborn characteristics also factor in. So we're going to briefly go over some ways to promote emotional development. Really, it begins with relationships. You need to have positive relationships with the children in your care. You need to use intentional communication. So watch your tone of voice, your facial expressions, and gestures. You need to be positive. Smile, look into children's eyes, use affectionate touch, but always be mindful of culture. Spend time labeling feelings in your classroom. I see you're frustrated. I see you're mad, but what is it that we can do about it? And help those children to learn to express those feelings in appropriate ways. You can always use social and emotional curriculums. This is books and materials. On Tuesday night, we are going to talk about some websites and free resources that are available to you as teachers. You can promote conscious development by talking with children about feelings, values, behaviors, and consequences, and using reasoning. Class meetings, impromptu discussions, children's books, and respectful classroom environments will also support with this. You can protect children from the kind of stress that can cause long-term damage in order to help them with managing stress and coping, and sometimes this means that you have to report child abuse and neglect. Some other strategies also include the use of dramatic play, use of informational books, talking about stressful events and learning ways to calm down, and learning who to seek support from. I think the biggest thing about promoting social and emotional development is that you have to be intentional about positive social and emotional development in your classroom. Because when you are investing in a child's overall development. You also need to establish a personal, nurturing, responsive relationship with young children. And you can do that through a variety of ways, but some ways to do that are making activities meaningful, making sure all children are receiving the support that they need, not just the children with the behavior challenges, and by avoiding labeling in your classroom. So we're going to talk about guidance versus punishment. So I think first and foremost, the terms discipline, guidance, and punishment can also seem kind of confusing. But really, what we're trying to do in early childhood is use guidance and avoid punishment. Because guidance helps children learn to take personal responsibility for their actions and to learn the difference between acceptable and unacceptable behavior. Punishment is just a penalty that is intended to humiliate or hurt, and usually involves removing privileges or using physical punishment. But it can also include the use of unreasonable, often harsh actions to force children into behaving the way that we want them to. So here are the differences between guidance and punishment. Guidance is essentially a positive way of helping children learn from their behavior and helps build them up as a person. Punishment is the exact opposite, so you are doing negative things. You are lowering self-esteem, degrading, angering, discouraging them, and embarrassing them. So I would recommend taking a few minutes to just read this slide over and make sure you understand the difference. So some goals of guidance are to maintain self-esteem, produce a desired change, self-regulation and self-control, and to promote more pro-social behaviors. And all of this comes through intentional teaching. But some other ways that you can do it is to build relationships with children early on, not after a problem develops. Make sure that the environment is positive, both verbal and nonverbal. Use positive reinforcement. Be proactive versus reactive. And we will talk about some of this too on our meeting time on Tuesday. You also need to use natural and logical consequences, effective praise, meaning you need to go beyond the good job. You should be offering suggestions, not commands, positive redirection, and create environments where your children know what to do. So this is actually from Pyramid, and this is the 5-to-1 rule, which essentially means that in order for you to build positive relationships with a child, you need to do 5 deposits before you even do 1 withdrawal. I do want to come back to this, and I want to talk about this on Tuesday night. So take note of this slide. We'll be pulling it up, and we will be talking about it as we speak together on Tuesday. I think this quote kind of sums up what I'm talking about when I'm talking about guidance. If a child doesn't know how to read, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to behave, we teach or we punish. So just keep that in mind as you're reading through the content this week. You do have your competency statement 3 due. It's an I will statement focused on how you provide social and emotional development and positive guidance in the classroom. Keep up with formatting. You guys are doing great. Remember to keep it about a page and no more than 2 pages. All right. I will see you guys on Tuesday. Thanks.